Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for holding this hearing today. I can't tell you how important it is for the Congress to understand the depth and breadth of this storm and what impact it's actually had. I also appreciate all the kind words and your call in the middle of the storm, giving your condolences for the victims and for the families that were suffering. I also want to thank my colleagues who will be appearing before this panel later in this hearing. Senator Schumer will come in, who's been a stalwart advocate for New York, and the rest of our delegation will come in as well. So I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell the stories of what's happened to our families in New York. Just over a month ago, Superstorm Sandy ravaged the Northeast, and it left a path of destruction that cut across the most densely populated region of the country, unimaginably altering the lives of tens of millions of people. In Sandy's wake, more than 40 New Yorkers died. Millions more were left with significant damage to their homes and neighborhoods, their businesses, their families. Now, as New Yorkers, we've been reading the stories and seeing it on the news, but for the rest of Washington, the stories of heartbreak are unimaginable. The most heartbreaking story was when I went to Staten Island and we met with first responders whose job was to find 2 children. And what happened in this case was a mother was worried because she'd lost power and her husband told her to find a different place to stay with the children and urged her to go to Brooklyn to see her mother. She took the children in the car, but what happened in Staten Island is the storm surge was so severe. A 10-foot wave came across the road. Her vehicle stalled. She took her children out of the car. She tried to get them to higher land, and they were taken from her arms. These children were 2 years old and 4 years old, and the mother could do nothing about it because the storm was so strong. Now, she's just one story of many of families who lost their lives because of this storm. And I can tell you, our mayor and our governor worked so hard to evacuate families. They evacuated families all across New York. And that's one of the reasons why the loss of life was as low as it was. But for each of these lives that were lost, there are many more. Another story that, you think you have a safe place to live. So in Westchester County, a family had their son at home, in his home, safe. He had a friend over to help him weather the storm. A tree crashed on the home, and the 2 boys were killed, 11 and 13. Some elderly couples, they just couldn't leave. They couldn't leave in time. An elderly couple in Staten Island drowned when the rising tides came into their home, and they couldn't escape in time. So these are just a small number of the horrible stories that took the lives of New Yorkers. And I've spent a lot of time, as has Senator Schumer and our delegation, visiting with the families and helping them to begin to piece their lives together. And it's affected communities all across New York. Each of the 5 boroughs were affected: the Hudson Valley, Long Island. The devastation just came across a huge area, and we'll hear from more of the delegation from New Jersey as well. And so as we begin to rebuild, folks are looking to Washington for how can you help us? And I can tell you, we must help these families begin to rebuild. The devastation is so severe. For New York families, lives have been lost and homes are destroyed. Businesses are in rubble. And families have been cut off from basic services. One of the big stories across New York was how many families were without electricity for so long, for weeks. Some still don't have electricity. And obviously, as the cold of winter continues to come in, we're worried about their safety. But amid this destruction, I've also had the blessing to see what's best about New York. New Yorkers are very strong. They're extremely resilient. Communities have come together to rebuild. I can't tell you how many friends I saw helping other friends, gutting basements, pulling out destroyed property, having all of their belongings in the front of their homes. But it was these friends and community members that were giving hope to families who had lost everything. Now, so far, we've had claims for 305,000 homes. They've been seriously damaged or destroyed. More than 265,000 businesses have been impacted. Thousands of New Yorkers are still homeless. In the immediate aftermath of the storm, we had 2 million New Yorkers lose power. And because some families' homes, boilers were destroyed or electrical systems were destroyed, we still have many, many homes that do not have electricity today. Our governor has estimated that it'll be about $32.8 billion to begin to rebuild New York. And that's just for New York. That's not including the billions required for New Jersey and other states. So I'm going to take you through a couple other places around the state. This is Breezy Point. Now, as you can see in this neighborhood, the whole neighborhood was destroyed by fire. It was absolutely devastated. Even a member of our congressional delegation's home was razed by fire. 111 homes were destroyed in this particular fire and flood. The entire community will have to be rebuilt. Since this committee is so relevant for transportation, I want to go through specifically some transportation infrastructure, since I think this committee will be most impacted by that request. This is a photo of the South Ferry subway station. You can see the water. It's not very clear, but it's literally consumed the whole subway station. And these are the escalators going down into water. This next picture is of the Hugh Carey Tunnel. The whole tunnel was covered up to the top. This is a picture of rail that was fully washed away. This is in Westchester. And so this is what it looks like normally. And the water just literally moved the whole tracks off its bearings. Now, one of our major areas of jurisdiction is the Army Corps of Engineers. And they will play a major role in reconstruction of New York's flood protection system. Senator Schumer will, I'm sure, talk more about this, but we've already given them a list of projects that they've already authorized. They just have never begun. Or some they've started but never completed. And that's almost $1 billion worth of Army Corps projects. But those are the ones we know we can do. They've already been studied. We know they're the most urgent issues. I just want to conclude by reiterating to my colleagues in the Congress how important meeting the needs of these families and businesses is. One of the roles of the federal government is to keep people safe. And when lives are so destroyed, when communities lie in rubble, when families don't know how to begin to rebuild, that's really when the federal government makes a difference. And so I just want to urge my colleagues to open their hearts, find goodwill, and help restore and rebuild New York. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.